Welcome to the third and final day of DataWorks. We are so glad you are here. There's a lot of planning that goes involved, and actually being here and seeing everyone is just really exciting. So just a few reminders before we get started. Just remember to wear your badge at all times while you're in the building, and just stay in the designated workshop areas. Restrooms are outside to our left and also on the second floor. And just a reminder to keep all of our conversations unclassified. And if you need any assistance at all, the security staff or one of the DataWorks staff will be available at the conference center to answer those questions. While I'm here, I'd also like to take the time to acknowledge everyone who makes this workshop happen. So many individuals in this room have contributed to making it a success. I'd like to thank all of our presenters for the excellent talks we've heard the past 2 days and for the ones that we will hear today. I'd like to thank our technical program committee for helping identify those speakers and build such wonderful sessions. I'd like to thank our co-chair committee for really guiding the development of the program over the last year. If you can believe it or not, in a few weeks we will already start planning for 2024, so it is a years-long process. And then I'd also like to thank our advisory committee for really providing the strategic vision and supporting the longevity of this workshop. And then lastly, I'd like to thank our incredible IDA staff for really pulling off the logistics. So our security and front desk personnel, our enterprise IT, our conference event services, facilities, corporate communications, and our administrative staff. It is really a team effort to pull this off, so thank you. So we'll just give a round of applause for all those individuals. And now, to kick things off, I'm going to introduce one of our advisory committee members, Dr. Bram Lillard, to say a few words. Dr. Lillard is the director of the Operational Evaluation Division here at IDA, where he provides strategic leadership, project oversight, and direction for the division's research programs. Please welcome Dr. Lillard.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third and final day of DataWorks 2023. I'm very pleased to see all of you here in person, and then also, I guess, the cameras in the back. Welcome all of you who are online. This is the second year in a row that we've been able to provide a virtual option, and I think despite maybe a couple hiccups, it's worked very well, and I'm pleased that we could expand the attendance to even more than those of you who could be in the room. So as Rebecca mentioned, my name is Bram Lillard. I'm the director of the Operational Evaluation Division here at IDA. OED is one of the 8 research divisions within the Systems and Analysis Center, which is one of the largest of 3 FFRDCs that IDA operates. I am really pleased that throughout its 40-year history, OED has been able to focus on the test and evaluation of weapon systems in the Department of Defense. We have partnered with DOT&E for all of those years, and in both the planning, the observation, and the evaluation of weapon systems in operational testing and live fire testing across hundreds of acquisition programs in the department. I count it myself fortunate to be part of DOT&E's mission. It is a critically important role within the Department of Defense to sort of be that honest broker and to provide that independent and unbiased reporting on test adequacy and analytically rigorous analysis. OED also supports the department's efforts on future resource allocations, which our keynote this morning will talk to us a little bit about. Also, we have an emerging area in evaluating weapon system sustainment, decision-making, and readiness analysis. One of our core competencies is cybersecurity evaluations, both in OED and then more broadly across IDA. And then many of you might not know this, but we also help the Department of Homeland Security in evaluating anti-terrorism products and services. The common thread through all of our research in the division is that we keep data at the center of all of our evaluations, but we provide an operational perspective. And what I think those of you who are in OED have heard me say this many times, sort of the secret sauce of IDA and also OED is that we combine the capabilities of folks with a strong technical and analytical background coming from STEM degrees and science, but also those who wore the uniform. And that is a critical part of how we support the Department of Defense, that we bring an operational perspective to keep the human and the warfighter at the center of all of our evaluations. So I wanted to take a brief moment to mention something that Director Girton, the Director of Operational Test and Evaluation, yesterday mentioned very briefly. Many of you may not know this, but there's an interagency agreement between DOT&E and NASA. And you might wonder, what do these two very different organizations have in common that they would forge a very formal agreement to work together for common problems? Well, there's sort of some obvious things. Both the DoD operates in space, and so does NASA. And we saw this yesterday in some of the keynotes, both the keynote speeches, about how we have a new warfighting domain in space operations. And there's a lot of common problems in that regard. For example, IDA is working with both NASA and the department on orbital debris, which of course is an emerging challenge for both civilian and military space-based capabilities. But there's a broader theme here, which is what drove the implementation of the interagency agreement. Both organizations deal with the very, very complex systems where modeling and simulation becomes a major component of our evaluations. How do we even do the validation of these complex models, especially as our computing power grows and improves? We often have programs that are completely data saturated, but then on the other hand, very sparse data that we have to make the most of. And how do we apply analytical techniques to make the most of those data and ensure that we are characterizing system performance in the best way possible? Obviously, one of the themes of this conference is to apply rigorous statistical methodologies, of which both the DoD and NASA rely on more and more. And I would be remiss not to mention our growing need for human factors research and survey methodologies, as well as, of course, artificial intelligence, which is changing our world nearly every day. So we have a lot of commonality across the two very different organizations. As you might have guessed, this interagency agreement has a central component in DataWorks. So DataWorks actually is sort of the central way that we implement that agreement. And I'm very pleased that yesterday Director Girton he expressed his view that the conference is one of the main ways that he sees his own strategy being implemented in the department, one of several venues to aid the development of the analytical workforce. So IDA's role is we're not actually a signatory to this agreement, but we help facilitate the interagency agreement between DOT&E and NASA. And we want to continue to support its continued implementation, helping with the logistics. So we're very pleased to host the conference itself and then help with the logistics of how we might develop a common research agenda between the organizations. And then thirdly, through financial support, so that we can maintain access for all of you to attend conferences like this. I wanted to very briefly go through a short history of DataWorks. We actually started this back in 2016. We had the very awkward name of the Knowledge Exchange Workshop. It had about 125 attendees, and forgive me for embarrassing you, but it was the brainchild of Laura Freeman, who's here on the stage left here, and Pete Parker, who I don't know if I see him in the room. There he is, raising his hand, as well as the strong endorsement and support from the director of DOT&E at the time, as well as NASA leadership. So thank you both for having this idea, and it has clearly flourished since then. We've fortunately changed the name to DataWorks in 2018 to sort of better reflect the focus of the conference, and it has grown every year since then. We even worked our way through COVID, with one year being completely virtual, and it has, in my opinion, become the premier workshop in the Department of Defense for statistical analysis. And I think you all should consider yourselves very lucky to be here. We actually maxed out registration this year. So it's excellent. I think we even had to turn a couple folks away. I'm not sure if that's true, but okay, we'd like to say that. It is a growing area, and I'm very pleased that this conference could continue to serve the department and NASA. The scope and focus of DataWorks has actually evolved a little bit over the years. When we first started, it was very focused on statistics in test and evaluation. We had very special dedicated topics on statistical engineering, of which this afternoon we will have a session on that as well, and that continues to be a major area of emphasis. But really, data has become the central focus in how we analyze data and manage it to ensure that we're making data-driven decisions and conducting data-driven evaluations. T&E continues to be one of the lodestars of the conference, but we have broadened to other topics such as data management, data curation, automation and reproducibility of analytical methods, the application of advanced methods outside the T&E community to weapon system sustainment, digital modeling, cybersecurity, and of course, artificial intelligence. And I would like to just say that this is, we've kind of created there's a unique niche here. And we've created a really fantastic community of practice. This is not specifically a statistics conference. There are many of those. And it's not an aerospace engineering conference or even a T&E conference. But rather, we've, I think, established a forum that really strikes a balance between not being too overly technical, but technical enough and focused on practical application for all the problems and challenges that focus both the DoD as well as NASA. I think that we've developed a fantastic community here. Somewhat of an eclectic group we are, but one that has a lot of common challenges that we can work on and forge common tool sets. I'd like to think that DataWorks plays a strong role in helping to continue to build the analytical workforce, to grow in our knowledge, in our experience, and our connections. And I'd like to challenge each of you, if you haven't already done it, you need to introduce yourself to one new person. Make that a point today. One of the goals of this conference is to continue to grow ourselves, right? To continue our learning, and I think that it's dangerous for us to just it's rather easy for us to sort of go through our normal analytical, well-trodden paths. Well, I know how to do this method. Here's a new problem. I'm going to sort of go back to what I've always done. And I'd like to challenge us all to think about how we might grow our own capability to ensure that we are not stagnant and that we can continue to support the various missions and our organizations. So just so you know who's sitting next to you, we have a lot of excellent organizations represented, obviously in addition to IDA, DOT&E, and NASA. I'm pleased to welcome the Department's Service Operational Test and Evaluation Centers. So we have representatives from ATEC, AFOTEC, MACATIA, and OPTEV-4. The National Labs, thank you all for being here. We have the academies. I'm very pleased that we had cadets from both West Point and the Naval Academy here. Air Force Test Wings and Air Mobility Command. We have representatives from DHS, JITC, CDAO, APL, MITRE, and of course, many of the universities and our academic partners. Very pleased that so many of you who are students could come and participate and show your research. I really enjoyed the speed sessions and the poster sessions yesterday evening. And then also, thank you to our industry partners who are here as well. One quick thing before I get off the stage here. If you all look on the very last page of your program, there's some important connection information for you. So I don't know about you, but I've gone to many conferences and you introduce yourself to people and you think, oh, I forgot to get that person's email address and contact information, or I ran out of a business card. Fortunately, you can now get it. So on the last page, you can see this link at the top called Data Networks. If you checked the box on your registration to share your information, you can now go back and find the email address of that person that you talked to at lunch. So please make use of that, and please reach out to the community that you no longer have an excuse not to. Also, the International T&E Association, or ITEA, we're going to do a special journal issue this coming year, or later this year, where we'll take about a dozen or so DataWorks talks and authors who will produce shorter articles, and that will be a special issue in ITEA. At this point, you should all be familiar with testscience.org. So I don't know if you noticed, but the actual website for this conference is dataworks.testscience.org. But we actually have a broader website called testscience.org that includes a lot of educational content for new analysts as well as seasoned analysts, a lot of web-based analytical tools, and there's a whole repository of papers on emerging research areas that you all might find helpful. We also have been doing, IDA, have been doing a podcast. So each day we've had a great recap of the day's events, and so I hope that you could check that out. And then I don't know about you, but there's many times I've been here where I thought I want to be in 3 places at once and see all the different talks. Fortunately, we have recorded nearly all of the presentations so that you can go back to our post-workshop archives, and all of the materials will be available after the event. So let me get off the stage and welcome our speakers for today. I will turn this over to Colonel Clark here to introduce the Honorable Christine Fox. But I also want to point out that we have a fantastic agenda today, an AI panel just after our keynote this morning, as well as sessions on modeling and simulation, data literacy, and I'm looking forward to the National Lab session as well. So thank you all. Welcome again to IDA, and I look forward to meeting many of you throughout the rest of today. Nick?